there, Linda Artisani from the Accountants Law Lab. This week, I'm talking a little bit about software, and I know I mentioned this a couple of weeks back when we were talking about different software. And I want to talk really about mastering the art of law firm bookkeeping using Clio. So, two software we use at our firm, Clio and Lien Law. I have to say that I took to Lien Law like it just logically made sense in my head, and Clio doesn't exactly work that way for me. I find I struggle a little bit with how the software is laid out and how to match, because that's the thing I see more times than not with client books, is that they didn't match the software right. And the one thing that they do, which I see this even in both software actually, is that QuickBooks will suggest that it's a transfer from IOLTA to operating, and it can't be a transfer. If it's a transfer, you're not hitting the trust liability account, you're just doing a bank-to-bank transaction. I can see why the software thinks it's just a transfer, but with legal bookkeeping, you can't use transfers. Mostly because the software is going to push over transactions in a journal entry. And that's the way that it will come across. The other issue that I have when working with lawyers is they may do their billing once a month, and they'll do all the work in Clio. They'll create their invoices. Since we're talking about Clio, they'll do all the invoicing. They'll create all the payments. And then as they push their payments in, they'll all arrive as payments to the account, and they book in line by line. So every payment's going to come in singularly as a journal entry to show that the money's being transferred out of trust into operating. Basically, it's going to hit the trust bank account and the trust liability account as it moves out. And then you'll see it as an invoice, and you'll see it as an invoice payment. There's your two sides. So it's just like that complex, how do you do law firm bookkeeping without the software? Well, this is the stuff that the software does in the background. And one of the things that it does is it's sending over these transactions, and you have to aggregate them into the right accounts to manage that. So those invoice payments, you're going to create the invoices in Clio. The client's going to create the payments. Those are all going to push over as you synchronize it. And as they push over, they might push over in together, or they'll push over separately. If they're booked to undeposited funds, they're going to all end up in the undeposited fund account, where the client may make a transfer for one amount, and it might have 6, 8, 10, 20 payments in it. They're only going to transfer from IOLTA to operating, let's just say, for example, $10,997, but that's inclusive of maybe 20 different transactions. How do you rectify and match that when Clio's shooting them all over individually? Well, you're going to use that matching feature. So when you're starting to do this work with working with lawyers, you're going to match the transactions. You're going to match the side where the money's moving out of trust. So you're going to match that side with the journal entries, and you're going to match all those client payments and group them to match that deposit. It's tricky work, especially if the client doesn't date everything properly. It's like, how do I figure out which ones go where? The other issue you may run into is if the client's using Clio payments, which a lot of them are using now. It's very convenient. It's built right into the system. And I got to tell you, quite frankly, Clio is a good product. I mean, there's a lot of features in there that I often see a lot of the law firms aren't even using, and they don't even realize that they're there. There's ways to do DocuSign in there. There's ways to connect your share file or Smart Vault to it. There's a lot of different ways to integrate, because Clio's been around a long time. There's a lot of software integrations in there that you may not get with other software, because it's the grandpa of all the software. It's not perfect, but you just need to know how to work the system to make this stuff work. You need to match these transactions. Don't go in and click and put them all those banking, all the money coming into the bank as deposits to legal income when you've already created invoices and you've created invoice payments on the side. That won't work with Clio. So I'll add a little demo video in here to show you the matching process. It's pretty cool. I'll just sneak that in as part of this video, but I just wanted to explain it a little bit, because I think sometimes people are afraid to synchronize it because they don't want to connect it and have to deal with that matching process. But the matching process is powerful. You're really validating the work, because if you're over here in Clio booking, the client's booking in entries, but you're not pushing it into QuickBooks. You're now going to have to enter all those invoices into QuickBooks because they won't be there. You're going to have to enter all the payments. Now you see there's a little redundancy here, right? Your client's doing it in Clio, you're replicating it in QuickBooks. It's not an effective workflow, and this software is not designed for that. So if this topic has intrigued you, and I hope it has, make sure you click the subscribe button and follow me for more, but also join our group, the Accountants Law Lab. We actually dive into QuickBooks quite often and quite regularly because it's the #1 software for attorneys, and because we have a lot of questions around it, especially when it comes to this matching and figuring out how to make all of this come together and work. It's something we teach. So if you've got a client in Clio and you want to learn more, jump in our group. We'd love to have you, and we'd love to have, we'll be here to answer questions. We've got an open forum coming up in a couple of weeks, and you can ask us questions on how to do this work. Also, sometimes if you're new to legal bookkeeping, it's helpful to learn the things that we have. We've got 2 full years of topics and recordings in there for you to learn really quickly on the fly. So I hope that helps. We'll see you all in the next video, and until next week, bye now.